Nobody saw this coming. Not the fans, not the analysts, not even the people who spend their entire lives watching every single move the Dallas Cowboys make. Nobody. And yet, here we are, standing in the middle of one of the most shocking moments in Cowboys history in recent memory. Troy Aikman, the man, the legend, the Hall of Fame quarterback who bled silver and blue for over a decade, just dropped a bombshell that has the entire NFL world talking. And once you hear exactly what he said, and more importantly, what it actually means for the future of America's team, you're going to understand why Cowboys Nation is absolutely losing their minds right now. So buckle up, because this story, it goes way deeper than a headline. Let's start from the very beginning. You have to understand who Troy Aikman is to truly feel the weight of what just happened. This isn't some random analyst sitting behind a desk somewhere giving hot takes. This is the man who led the Dallas Cowboys to 3 Super Bowl championships. 3 in 4 years. He's not just a former player. He's the heartbeat of what the Cowboys were at their absolute greatest. When Troy Aikman speaks about Dallas, people listen, not just Cowboys fans. Everyone listens, because when a man of that stature opens his mouth about a franchise he gave everything to, you know it matters. And what he said, it changes everything. Now I'm going to walk you through this piece by piece, because there are layers here, layers that go beyond the surface level headline. There's context that most people are completely missing, and once you have the full picture, this moment hits completely different. So stay with me, because we are just getting started. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about where the Dallas Cowboys have been recently, because that context is everything. For years, and I mean years, Cowboys fans have been living in this exhausting cycle of hope and heartbreak. Every single preseason, the excitement builds, the talk starts, the analysts start throwing out Super Bowl predictions. Dak Prescott looks sharp, the offensive line looks dominant, the defense has playmakers, and then something happens. Something always happens, and the season ends too early, the questions get louder, and the offseason becomes a circus of rumors, drama, and uncertainty. Sound familiar? Of course it does. If you've been a Cowboys fan for any significant amount of time, you've felt that gut punch more times than you can count. And the frustrating part? The talent has been there. The pieces have been there. But some invisible wall has kept this franchise from getting back to where they belong. Now here's where it gets interesting, because for the last several months, behind the scenes in Dallas, something has been shifting. There have been quiet conversations, strategic meetings, a real, genuine sense that the people in charge of this franchise finally understand that they cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And the whispers started leaking out. Small things at first, a coaching philosophy here, a personnel decision there, but the whispers were getting louder, and the people paying close attention knew something was coming. Nobody expected Troy Aikman to be the one to confirm it. Here's what happened. Aikman, who is now one of the most respected voices in NFL broadcasting, a man who calls games for ESPN and Monday Night Football, was in the middle of an interview when the subject of the Cowboys came up. Now, Troy is always careful. He always chooses his words deliberately when it comes to Dallas. He knows that anything he says about that franchise gets amplified 1,000 times. He knows the weight his words carry. So when he started talking, and when the tone shifted, when you could hear something different in his voice, the interviewer leaned in, and so did everyone watching. Aikman confirmed it. He actually said it out loud, and the moment he did, the internet exploded. Now let me tell you exactly what he confirmed and why it's sending shockwaves through the entire NFL, not just Dallas. Troy Aikman made it clear that the Dallas Cowboys are undergoing a fundamental change in how they operate. Not a tweak, not a minor adjustment, a real structural shift in the way this franchise approaches winning. He talked about accountability. He talked about the importance of surrounding Dak Prescott with the right support system. He talked about the coaching decisions that need to reflect a genuine commitment to competing at the highest level. And he did something that Troy Aikman rarely does. He got personal about it. He talked about what it takes to win a Super Bowl, not in generic terms, in real, specific, honest terms that only a man who has actually done it can speak to. And he made it crystal clear, what the Cowboys have been doing recently is not that. It has not been a championship-level operation, and the people running this franchise now know it. But here's the part that really got everyone's attention. Aikman didn't just criticize, he actually expressed genuine optimism, real hope, the kind of hope that isn't just hype. He said, and I want you to really hear this, that he believes the Dallas Cowboys are closer to turning the corner than most people think. He believes the organizational mindset is shifting, and he believes if the right moves are made this offseason, moves that he strongly hinted are already in motion, Dallas could be a genuine Super Bowl contender in the very near future. From Troy Aikman, the guy who doesn't just throw that kind of statement around. Let that sink in for a second. Now let's talk about what those moves might actually look like, because Aikman didn't just speak in vague terms, he gave us enough to connect the dots, and when you connect them, the picture that emerges is fascinating. First, let's talk about the coaching situation. This has been the elephant in the room for Dallas for a while now, the relationship between the front office and the coaching staff, the question of whether the people calling the shots on game day have the full trust and full authority they need to make real-time decisions without interference. This is a conversation that Cowboys fans have had 1,000 times, and it's a conversation that Troy Aikman clearly has strong feelings about. He didn't name names, he was careful, but the message was unmistakable. For the Cowboys to compete at the level they're capable of competing at, the people in charge of football operations need to be empowered to make football decisions. Full stop. No compromise on that. And if that is actually happening in Dallas right now, if that shift is genuinely taking place, then that alone is a massive development. Because here's the thing that casual fans sometimes miss. Talent wins games, yes, but culture and structure win championships. The teams that consistently compete for Super Bowls, the Patriots dynasty, the Kansas team right now, the Eagles recently, they all have one thing in common: clear roles, clear authority, clear accountability. Everyone knows their job, everyone is trusted to do their job, and the best football minds are making football decisions without ego getting in the way. The Cowboys have struggled with that for a long time, and Aikman knows it better than almost anyone because he lived inside that organization. He knows what it looks like when it works, and he knows what it looks like when it doesn't. So when he says the culture is shifting, that matters enormously. Now let's talk about the roster, because this is where things get even more exciting. Dak Prescott. We have to talk about Dak Prescott, because the narrative around Dak has been one of the most complicated, most debated storylines in the NFL for years. Is he the guy? Is he good enough to take a team to a Super Bowl? Does he elevate the players around him, or does he need to be elevated by them? Aikman addressed this, and what he said was nuanced in a way that only someone with quarterback experience can be nuanced. He didn't pile on Dak, he didn't blindly defend him either. He spoke about what Dak needs, what the situation around him needs to look like for him to be the best version of himself. And Aikman made the case that when he's had the right pieces around him, he has looked like a franchise quarterback capable of winning it all.
The health factor is real. The supporting cast factor is real. And the question of whether this offseason produces a situation where Dak is truly set up for success, that's the question Aikman was essentially asking out loud. And then he hinted that the answers might already be coming. Think about the offensive weapons. Think about what CeeDee Lamb has become, one of the most electric wide receivers in the entire NFL. When this offense is clicking, when the line is healthy, when the play calling is aggressive and creative, this team can score with anyone. Aikman sees that. He sees the ceiling, and the ceiling is high. But what about the defense? What about the other side of the ball that has, at times, been the thing carrying this team, and at other times, the thing that has let them down in the biggest moments? Aikman touched on this too. The defensive talent in Dallas is real. Micah Parsons is one of the most dominant defensive players in the league, a generational talent who disrupts games in ways that make offensive coordinators lose sleep. The secondary has pieces. The front seven has depth. But consistency, that word that keeps coming up when you talk about the Cowboys, consistency has been the issue. And Aikman made the point that in the playoffs, in the moments that define a season, you cannot have inconsistency. You cannot have games where your defense looks elite and then games where they look like they've never practiced together. Championship defenses show up every week, every quarter, every drive. That standard, Aikman said it clearly, has to become the expectation in Dallas, not the exception. Now here's where I want to pause for a second, because there's something happening in this story that goes beyond X's and O's, something emotional, something that taps into what the Dallas Cowboys actually mean, not just to football fans, but to American sports culture. The Cowboys are called America's team for a reason, and I know that drives some people crazy, especially if you root for any other team in the NFC East. But strip away the rivalries and the noise, and you cannot deny the cultural footprint of this franchise. The star on the helmet, the iconic stadium, the history, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. These names don't just belong to football, they belong to a generation of American sports memory. And when the Cowboys struggle, when they fall short year after year, it doesn't just disappoint Cowboys fans, it creates a void. Because the NFL is a better product when the Cowboys are relevant, when they're competing, when they're must-watch television every single week. And deep down, even the people who despise them know that's true. So when Troy Aikman, one of the pillars of that golden era, stands up and says he sees a path forward, he sees a real chance at resurrection, that's not just a Cowboy story, that's a football story, and it deserves to be treated as one. Okay, let's keep moving, because there's more to unpack here, and we haven't even gotten to the part that might be the most significant piece of all, the ownership question. Now, this is a conversation that people have been having around the Dallas Cowboys for decades. Jerry Jones, love him or hate him, and plenty of people exist in both camps, Jerry Jones is the Dallas Cowboys. He built this franchise back from irrelevance in the late 80s. He made the moves that brought in Jimmy Johnson, that built the dynasty, that gave Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin a team worthy of their talents. He's a Hall of Famer as an owner. His fingerprints are on everything. But as the years have gone on, the criticism has grown louder. The argument that Jerry's involvement, his deep, personal, hands-on involvement in every single aspect of this franchise, has actually become a limiting factor, that his reluctance to fully hand over football decisions to football people has been the thing standing between Dallas and another championship. Aikman didn't attack Jerry Jones. He wouldn't do that. That's not who Troy Aikman is. But he did talk carefully, deliberately, about what successful NFL franchises look like in the modern era. And the implication was clear. The front offices that are winning today are front offices where the best football minds have the authority and the trust to do their jobs. Is Jerry Jones hearing that message? Is something actually changing in that regard inside Valley Ranch or AT&T Stadium, wherever the real decisions get made for this franchise? Aikman seemed to believe the answer is yes. And if that's true, if the organizational structure is genuinely evolving, if Jerry Jones is genuinely willing to empower the right people in ways he perhaps wasn't before, then everything changes. Not just the results on the field, the entire trajectory of the franchise. Because here's the thing, Jerry Jones is not going to be around forever. That's not a criticism, that's just reality. And the question of what the Dallas Cowboys look like in the next chapter, in the chapter after Jerry, that question is already being asked in NFL circles, quietly but persistently. And the moves that get made right now, the structure that gets built right now, will determine whether this franchise is positioned to continue being a powerhouse or whether it drifts into mediocrity. Aikman is essentially saying the right seeds are being planted, finally. Now I want to talk about the reaction, because the reaction to what Aikman said has been fascinating, and it tells you a lot about where Cowboys fans are right now emotionally. Social media went absolutely wild, as you'd expect, but what was interesting was the split. On one side, you had the Cowboys faithful,
the true believers who have never stopped wearing the star, who have watched every single game through the heartbreak and the almost moments, and they were fired up, energized, sharing the clip everywhere, talking about how this feels different, how this offseason feels like the beginning of something real. On the other side, you had the skeptics, and honestly, the skeptics deserve to be heard too, because how many times have Cowboys fans been told this is the year? How many times has the hype machine cranked up in the spring and summer, only to have October and November bring the familiar disappointment? The skepticism is earned, it's rational, it's the defense mechanism of a fan base that has been let down too many times to just blindly believe again without proof. And that's what makes Aikman's confirmations so significant, because Troy Aikman is not a hype machine. He's not a Cowboys cheerleader trying to sell tickets or generate excitement. He's a broadcaster now. His job is to be objective, to call games for all 32 teams, to see the NFL clearly and communicate it accurately. When he chooses to go on the record and say the Cowboys are trending in the right direction, he's not doing it to make people feel good. He's doing it because he genuinely believes it. That credibility is everything. And it's why this moment, this confirmation, carries so much more weight than it had come from anyone else. Let me also talk about something that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention in the coverage of this story: the timing. Now, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The NFL landscape right now is shifting in real and dramatic ways. The Kansas City Chiefs have built a dynasty that the entire league is trying to figure out how to stop. The Philadelphia Eagles are absolutely loaded and have championship ambitions of their own. The NFC is as competitive as it's been in years, and the window for any team to compete for a Super Bowl is never guaranteed to stay open. For Dallas, that window involves Dak Prescott being healthy and at his best. It involves CeeDee Lamb continuing to be one of the most dominant receivers in the football. It involves Micah Parsons continuing to terrorize offensive linemen and quarterbacks across the league. These players are in their prime right now. This is the moment. Not 2 years from now, not after another rebuilding cycle, now. And I think Aikman understands that urgency. I think that urgency is part of what drove him to speak as directly as he did. The Cowboys don't have the luxury of taking this offseason lightly. They don't have the luxury of half measures or timid decisions. If they are genuinely trying to compete for a championship, and according to Aikman, they are, then every single move this offseason matters. Every roster decision, every coaching decision, every dollar of cap space, all of it matters enormously. The margin between a championship team and a team that goes home in January, it's razor thin. And the teams that make it through know that margin intimately. So what happens next? What should Cowboys fans actually be watching for in the coming weeks and months that will confirm or contradict what Aikman is saying? A few things. First, watch the coaching staff. Any significant additions or changes to the people guiding this team on game day will tell you a lot about which direction the organization is moving. Specifically, watch whether they bring in coaches with recent championship pedigree, coaches who know what it takes to build a Super Bowl culture because they've actually been inside one. Second, watch the off-season roster moves, free agency, the draft. How does the front office prioritize the needs of this team? Do they address the depth issues that have hurt them in late-season games? Do they find ways to add playmakers who can take the pressure off Dak and give this offense multiple legitimate weapons? Third, watch the tone coming out of the organization. Listen to how Jerry Jones speaks publicly about this team's goals. Listen to how the coaches and players talk about expectations. Is there a different kind of language this year? A harder, more accountable, more championship-focused language? Or does it sound like the same optimistic preseason talk that has preceded too many disappointing campaigns? These signals matter, and now that Aikman has put his credibility behind the idea that real change is happening, there is accountability attached to that. If the Cowboys go through another preseason of big talk and then another season of early exits, the reckoning will be louder than ever, because the expectations are now officially elevated. But here's the thing, and this is where I want to leave you. There is something genuinely stirring in Dallas right now, something that feels different from the routine off-season noise. Whether it's the quiet urgency in the front office or the hunger you can see in the eyes of players like Micah Parsons every time he speaks publicly, or the fact that an icon like Troy Aikman, a man with no obligation to cheerlead for a franchise he no longer plays for, chose this moment to confirm that the Cowboys are moving in the right direction. Something is shifting. And in the NFL, momentum is everything. Culture is everything. The belief, the genuine, earned, supported by evidence belief that a team is building towards something real, that matters more than people give it credit for. Championships are built in the off-season. They're built in the weight room and the film sessions and the front office meetings that never make headlines. They're built in the decisions that happen quietly, behind closed doors when nobody is watching. Aikman has essentially told us those decisions are being made right now in Dallas, and they're the right ones. For Cowboys fans who have waited a long time, who have lived through the drought and the heartbreak and the maybe next year cycles, this is the kind of moment that deserves your attention. Not blind faith, not reckless optimism, but real, measured, cautious hope, backed by the words of a man who knows exactly what a championship franchise looks and feels like. Troy Aikman has seen it from the inside. He's lived it. He's won it 3 times. And he's saying Dallas is getting there. Whether this is the year, whether it takes one more offseason, whether the pieces fall perfectly into place, none of that is certain. Nothing in the NFL is ever certain. But the direction Aikman is pointing to, that's a direction Cowboys fans haven't been able to point to with this kind of confidence in a very long time. So watch this space. Watch what happens in Dallas over the next several months. Watch every press conference, every signing, every draft pick, every practice report. Because if Aikman is right, and he usually is, the Dallas Cowboys are about to remind the entire NFL exactly why they're called America's team. And when they do, everyone is going to remember this moment. The moment Troy Aikman stood up and confirmed what the faithful had been hoping for all along. This isn't just news. This is the beginning of a story, and we're all watching it unfold in real time. Don't miss what comes next.